You may want to think twice before spanking your kids. A new study by the Journal of Pediatrics says childhood spankings can lead to a host of mental health problems when they get older. Researchers found those who were spanked were more likely to suffer with depression, attempted suicide, drink excessively, or use illegal drugs. Joining me now with more details on the study, Dr. Erlanger Turner, an assistant professor of psychology at the University of Houston downtown. We want to welcome you to the show. Obviously, this study will jar some parents who are out there spanking their children. Does it, I guess, indicate that you should not spank your child at all, or should you do it with limits?
Well, I mean, I think the use of spanking has declined historically, but there still is about 2/3 of parents that actually still support the use of spanking. According to the American Psychological Association, they do not support the use of spanking as a strategy to manage behavior. And the main reason for that is that it tends to cause more difficulties in terms of the emotional function, as the study noted, but also that in the long term, it doesn't actually help to decrease the behavior that they're trying to change.
Well, how do you account for so many people who survive spankings, like myself and others who are of certain age now? We've all gone through that, the spankings, but we're not nuts or crazy or anything.
Right.
Or at least we're not showing it.
Well, I think part of it is that when parents use spanking as a strategy, it tends to be one of their tools that they use, but for some parents it tends to be the only tool that they use, and I think that's when it becomes problematic, is because this is the only strategy that you use to be able to manage that behavior. And so over time you're teaching your child that this is the way to deal with conflict in different situations. And so as the study supports that, for these kids, that they don't really learn how to deal with conflict, and so their way of dealing with those things, particularly in relationships, is that they may respond physically.
So what do you do about those kids who don't respond to like timeout or punishment or I'm taking away your cell phone? They're still just out of control.
Right. Well, I think one of the things is that parents often use punishment strategies, which include spanking and timeout. And so one of the most appropriate ways to deal with behavior is to use positive reinforcement. And so using things like setting up. I know that for a lot of parents that they don't like to use that terminology.
I got it, all right.
But I think one of the things that we know is that when you do use those positive strategies, that they do tend to show more long-term effects, but also that it teaches the child what the appropriate response is, and so that you're showing them this is what you should do, as opposed to stop this behavior when we don't give them any.
You're looking for a good balance for the parents
right.
out
You need
there.
to give them a replacement behavior. And what often happens with things like punishment is that you don't give them that replacement behavior to engage in. You just tell them to stop engaging in that particular behavior that is detrimental.
So what advice would you give in the last 30 seconds that we have here for parents who have found themselves using corporal punishment as their only means of disciplining their child?
I think you have to find other strategies. So not to use spanking as your sort of primary strategy, because again, short term you may see some benefit, as a lot of parents really support, but that it's sort of a fine line in terms of getting into physical abuse. And so I think that's the thing that I often talk about in terms of working with the families, is that who knows that when you've had a long day and you get home and then you may hit your child harder than you expect, and then you get into a situation that leads to sort of abusive behaviors.
All right, always think about it. Dr. Erlanger Turner from the University of Houston downtown, thank you for coming on The Factor Uncensored.